How will we respond to climate change? I mean, how will we really respond to climate change? Because let's face it, we've never been in a situation quite like this before. This challenges us in ways, and we do not know how we will respond to that. We do know, though, that in the past, when we faced similar conditions of competition, of trauma, and of opportunity, the way that we've responded has not always been the most rational and planned way. Sometimes we can go into aggressive competition, we can fight, we can work together, or we can just completely give up and abandon. Surely climate change, in that sense, is the greatest test we have of who we are. And this question, how will we respond, is strangely ignored in all of the conversation. The assumption by policymakers is that this is going to be something rational, that we have a plan, we have a map, we have a roadmap, that we have a spreadsheet. But actually we know in reality, as we can see happening right across our politics, the way that people respond to things is very often based on something much simpler. Who's my friend? Who is my enemy? Who do I blame? And above all, what is the story that I'm going to tell myself about who I am and what I'm doing? So, how will we respond? And surely behind that is an even bigger question. Who is we? Because in terms of making sense of things, we create boundaries around it. Here and there. Now and then. Us and them. And everything about how we deal with conflict and trauma is based on definitions of who we are. So for the purpose of answering this question, I'm going to say that we is my own group that I can speak for, of people who are privileged in the rich world, who are, let's face it, the main cause of this problem. Because the we of climate change isn't all of humanity. Even if we use phrases like Anthropocene, we are not equally responsible. The truth is that climate change is in many ways a crime in which a rich group has taken away the future opportunities for the poorer and less privileged group. Humans have an amazing capacity to work together, to cooperate within our group. Once we know who the we is, this is me, this is my group, we can do astonishing acts of generosity and altruism for each other. I've interviewed people across multiple extreme weather disaster zones of the kind that we'll be expecting more and more in climate change. And the one thing everybody wants to tell me is how proud they are of their community, how they all came together, how they cared for each other, individual acts of kindness, how they started talking with and loving their neighbours who might have very different politics or very different ways of seeing the world, that they might normally not feel that they're part of the same thing. One thing they don't want to talk about is climate change. They don't want to talk about a recurrence. They want to talk about restoration, renewal and rebuilding. So we can be absolutely certain that as we move into this future climate change, that people will work together. And all of the evidence suggests that. Just as people came together and worked through COVID, and after COVID, despite all of the pain and the suffering and the isolation of lockdown, people repeatedly said how they felt a stronger sense of community and of belonging. But of course, the danger of cooperation is, again, this issue of identity. Once you identify strongly with your group, you also can define that as not supporting, attacking, or positively pushing away other groups. And in a world of high levels of climate change-induced migration, we can anticipate that people's cooperation within the group will be also expressed as antagonism and conflict with other groups. As we've seen throughout history, and we know that we can do astonishing things through love for each other, but also horribly hateful, destructive things through opposing outside groups. People also find a sense of identity from belonging to large groups which are created of movements, of groups for celebration, for joy, whether it's a rock concert or whether it's a religious movement. I'm sure that in the future, when we're dealing with these bigger than self problems, people will be looking for bigger than self solutions. Through God, through religion, through, I'm sure, a large surge in membership of established religions and sects, but also through things which feel like that, which have the same religious impulse, large social movements. That's positive. It might be a large social movement to deal with the causes of climate change, or indeed it could be a form of fascism or eco-fascism that draws us in another direction. The flip side of collaboration is going to be competition, where we draw that dividing line between who who we are and where others are, when we decide who we're going to look after and who we're going to find opportunity for ourselves, our group, our clan, our country. We could be moving into a situation where people define the future world as being one of winners and losers. Because we're all going to be dealing with a sense of trauma about the areas which are destroyed or the people that are destroyed, the zones that are sacrificed. We need to find a narrative that makes that feel okay for us. And I fear that narrative lies in the narrative of we're smart, we're clever, we're the winners. It's a way of justifying to ourselves what's happening. So within this future world, there's also going to be opportunists of people who are trying to do the very best they can with it. Now, some of those will be progressive. Everybody I know working in the progressive movement say, well, actually, climate change is a chance for us to sort out issues of inequality or the inherent weaknesses in capitalism and neoliberalism and all the things which have contributed to this problem that we face. So climate change brings it to the fore, brings us to a crunch point where maybe we have to make some fundamental changes. All well and good. But there will also be people who see major opportunities for making money out of a situation, not solving it, but making money from it. Huge transfers of wealth from one area to another, from one resource to another, from one area to another. Already, the vultures circling around Los Angeles trying to pick up the cheap property so they can consolidate the beachfront properties. Same thing happened in Hawaii. This is just a taste of what is to come. And there will be political opportunists too. A surge of populist politicians saying, they have abandoned you, I will look after you, I will defend you, I will look after you, our group, the us, against them, the outside group. Looking ahead into the future, one of the big questions is, who is responsible for this mess? Who do we blame? Because that also comes down the line of who is the us, who is the them, who is my in-group, who is the out-group. You know, we're storytelling animals right across humanity as a whole, all of us across all time. We've told stories that are constructed around a sense of ourselves, usually the heroes or the victims of the story, fighting against an enemy, an opponent who has the intention to cause us harm. Now, the problem we have with climate change is it doesn't fit into that story structure at all well. We, in our world, in the rich world, are responsible for this problem. But we don't want to accept that responsibility. We project blame outwards. We say it's for Chinese, or it's for rich people, not me, it's those other rich people, or it's the oil companies. As we move forward into the future, we're going to be facing that intensified. And that narrative, the way we structure it, is going to entirely determine our responses. We're going to be dividing the world up into the people who have responsibility and the people who don't. And unfortunately, one of the qualities of stories is that the ones which come to the surface are the ones which have most appeal, that speak best to our values, which have the tightest structure, that are most easily conveyed. They don't have to be true. We could be moving forward into a future of entirely false stories which get transmitted simply because they help people to ease with and make sense with the conditions they find themselves in. And this raises an even more important question. What happens when the billions, the trillions of dollars that are being invested at the moment into technologies of mass distraction, the attention economy, where the profits are based on holding and taking your attention away from the world, combines with a future where there will be so many things that people don't want to pay attention to? We've never been in this situation as humans before, and it has lots of potential danger for us. Are we going to deal with climate change? Are we going to deal with the impacts? Are we going to actually deal with the problems? Or are we going to climb into some virtual reality headset, some AI-determined parallel universe and completely blank out? And in this case, the we is us, the rich world who have that technology, who have that money, who have that privilege and that access to the technology, and above all, have the opportunists moving into that space to make as much money as they can from taking our attention away from the things we should pay attention to. We will adapt. Of that we can be absolutely certain. That is what we are fantastically good at as humans, as a species. It's why we have moved to every part of the world, why we have inhabited every environment in the globe. The danger for us, though, is that we will adapt too readily. that facing an underlying problem which is caused by our lifestyles, our cultures, our politics, our economy, the burning of fossil fuels that so many people find employment in and so many people make money out of, but we will prefer not to deal with that at all, to push all of that to one side and simply to cope with it, believing that the smart ones, the winners, the successful ones, our group, the we, can cope with this. This is already a storyline which is very strong on the right wing. This is the storyline which is currently being promoted by Donald Trump, by the oil companies. Something that is here and now with an immediate impact on us takes away all of our attention, all of our focus, both positively, the joy, the capacity of coming together and dealing with those problems, creates the enemy, but it also removes all of the attention and the focus from actually solving the underlying problems. And politics, let's face it, runs on a very, very short time schedule. It will all be about that. Let's also not forget that there's going to be people who can make a lot of money out of adaptation. Potentially large dams, large flood protections. Every time that houses burn down or there's a flood, they need to be rebuilt. They need to be replaced. Let's never underestimate the capacity of capitalism to make money out of things. I don't believe that climate change will, in the short term, collapse the economy. I feel that actually it will hold up as a new, perverse, aberrant economy which is simply based on replacing the things that have been destroyed by the forces that we have unleashed. I want to be absolutely clear. The only acceptable outcome is that we deal with the underlying causes of climate change and we stabilise the climate. We cannot stop it, we cannot solve it, but we can stabilise it. Anything short of that is a betrayal of the future, of all the humans who will follow us and of the people in the most vulnerable parts of the world. That has to be the objective. So the question is, can we anticipate the ways that we will respond in such a way that we can steer towards that outcome, and we can maintain that collective will? And can we do it in such a way that we avoid going off track and just disappearing into the corner of just competitive adaptation? Well, I think the starting point is this conversation. It has to be anticipating. It also has to be inoculation as well. We have to start saying, look, if we don't do things this way, things could go very badly wrong. We have to warn people, for example, that people will be telling you that we can cope with climate change, that we can adapt to it. People will be telling you that it's their blame, that they are responsible, not you. People will be trying to pull us apart and divide us. We must not allow that to happen. Inoculation is a way of preparing people against false information, and scientifically through experiments we know that it can be very effective in terms of anticipating lies or conspiracy theories. The next thing is we need to find within ourselves that capacity to work together towards a common end. We must not allow a line to be divided between us and others. We have to say we are all in this together. We have to accept and embrace diversity in every way, to say this is something that everybody is a part of, that everybody can contribute to. That we may have our differences, but we all have something important to offer on this. And we have to start a conversation. How will we deal with this in a way which is positive and constructive? If we don't do these things, if we do not anticipate where we are going, we will go off track. If we do anticipate them, we can, on the basis of this, build a fairer, more just, more equal, long-term sustainable society.